Hello, everybody. It's March 6, 2025, and this is the weekly Backdrop Dev meeting. We get together every week to talk about priorities and activity that is happening in Backdrop, the Backdrop CMS project, primarily core. And yeah, we've got a good little group here today. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm a core committer and technical lead for the Backdrop project, calling in from Oakland, California. We'll kind of go around the room and let people introduce themselves. We'll start off with Izzy, and then we'll go to Joseph.
Hello, I'm Izzy. I'm a freelance developer up in Vancouver, Canada. It's very sunny here. We've got spring blossoming around us, so we can't really complain. And we've got Backdrop to have fun with. I'll pass it on to Martin's here.
Yeah, go ahead,
Hi,
Martin.
I'm Martin Price, Yorkshire Pudding around Backdrop. I'm a Backdrop developer and contributor to many Contrib and occasionally core.
Great, thanks, Martin. We'll go to Joseph and then Eli.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm a Drupal and Backdrop developer in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm also a member of the core committer team.
Hey, thanks, Joseph. Eli.
Hello, my name is Eli Lissick. I'm a developer with Giant Rabbit, and I'm calling from San Diego, California.
Hey, thanks, Eli. And Tim.
I stepped away for a minor emergency that turned out not to be emergency at all. I'm Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and can't help but mention I'm getting ramped up to do work on Backdrop Live coming up in 1 month, about a month from today, I think. So that's it.
Yeah, that's great. All right, let's see. Other little announcements here. Izzy, thank you for being here. Izzy's article, The Legend of Drop the Dragon, a fictional telling of the origin story of Backdrop's mascot, mostly fictional, is scheduled to be published tomorrow. So that'll be a fun read for Friday afternoon. So you can check out the new section of backdropcms.org tomorrow to check that out. Let's see, we have a new Contrib application. Eli was helping take a look at it just before the meeting. So over in Backdrop Ops/Contrib on GitHub, there's a new contributor who's looking to join. So we're going to try to work through that as soon as possible. So one thing about that is that normally Greg Nesta is on top of our Contrib applications, but he's taking a break right now. So if anyone is interested in helping curate the Backdrop Contrib applications, that would be a really helpful volunteer position to keep an eye on Backdrop Ops/Contrib, which is where new contributors come in to join the Contrib community. And that's one of the areas where when a new application comes in, I think it's one of the most important areas for us to keep an eye on, because that's a potential new contributor I mean, like on the cusp of being a new contributor. That's like a 90% of the way there contributor. But they need help to get over that last little hurdle to actually become official and join the Contrib group. So if you're interested in gaining the authority to approve Contrib applications, you can email to I'm trying to think of where we should email. Probably PMC at backdropcms.org, or info@backdropcms.org would be a great place to go. And the multiple people on the other end of that will be authorized to help. On the flip side, you don't need to have any authorization to just help shepherd someone through the process. So you don't even need access to do that portion, to welcome somebody and help them through the Contrib application. All right, let's see, other things. New contrib projects. The bean module block entities ain't nodes. The bean module has been ported to Backdrop, which I'm gonna have to. I'm curious how that differs from the Drupal 7 version, if at all. So, the concept here is that it makes a new entity type um, for putting blocks on the page. Which now that I'm thinking about it, like the way that this could fit into Backdrop probably is pretty nicely, because Backdrop has out of the box the ability to place like an arbitrary node inside of a layout, and conceptually, Bean module would make a new entity type called a block, and then allow you to place that into a Drupal layout. And in Backdrop, I'm sure it places it into the layout system. So it is an interesting compromise. Like, I'm curious where it would be used. Maybe it's primarily for an upgrade path purpose. But anyway, yeah, curious how often that module is going to find purpose inside of the Backdrop community. I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just genuinely curious because uh, with uh, with pathless nodes in Backdrop, we tried to make it so that something like Bean isn't necessary by directing people to use a pathless node. But I'm sure that there are differences architecturally between
Yeah, I'd be
beans
interested
and
to know
nodes.
the use cases as well, because I can't quite work out what hole it fills.
Is this one of those cases where the main use case is upgrading a Drupal 7 site that?
I would bet that that's the primary use case, is they just want to keep their site going.
Yeah.
And Bean module is fairly popular in the world of Drupal. And we're 10 years into Backdrop now. So I think that we did do a pretty good job mitigating its need, because if it's been 10 years and nobody's ported it, then that means that the desire, the functionality is already there. But yeah, I'm guessing upgrade path is a very likely reason for this. There's also the cache exclude module, which was created, makes a simple way to exclude certain pages from getting cached. So thank you, HerbDuel, for porting that module, and
I
Laren
think
for
it's worth
porting the Bean
worth
module.
also pointing out that Herb sort of ported it as on the basis of a request in a forum. So it's good to see, good for people coming into the forum and seeing that people care about the responses, people giving them responses and helping them out.
Yeah, that is great. We might
Can I just jump in on talking about Contrib project? There's two exciting things going on. There's a topic in Zulip right now about layout paragraphs, which could be
okay.
a really interesting project, and it apparently has some momentum right now. If you're interested in layout paragraphs, Irina just opened a topic in Zulip, and I think would be interested in people participating in that. Also, I don't know if I should mention his name, but Joseph is here, and he and I are talking about trying to get some progress on content moderation module, which comes from Workbench. And if you're, I know other people have expressed an interest in this. If you're interested, keep an eye out for that. We may need people to test it soon. But it will allow you to create revisions on or draft versions of already published posts. So you can, do a draft update and then, wait until it's approved and post it later. And I think that's going to have really anxious to get that on the documentation site for Backdrop.org.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we had a discussion about this really recently about content moderations, like suitability for core. And I think the outcome of that conversation was that we're not sure. Like, building in Contrib makes a lot of sense, because we're not really sure if that's the future revisions, it makes things quite a bit more complex editorially. But
Just to be really clear, we did add an API for it in core. Right, we added an API that allows you to add additional states, sort of variations on published states. But there is no UI for it right now. So this will be the first, as far as I know, the first UI to leverage that API.
is that content moderation? Is it in the contrib group already?
Yes, there is a project already there. Herb started the port, and we're going to try to just jump in and help move it along.
Great. All right. That's great.
I just
Let's
want
see.
to.
Oh yeah, here we go. And Tim, you wanted to also say another update about the
Yeah.
management of backdropcms.org.
Yes. So I think it was announced last week that there is a fresh look, the front page of backdrop.org coming very soon. I'll leave it for Jen to if she's able to come later to update us. But on an only semi-related note, another discussion that's been happening is just about how to, like, when we want to make well, there's been discussions around adding content, like publishing blog posts. Izzy just went through a bit of a he's going to finally get his blog post published tomorrow, but it took a little longer than it should have, a little bit because we lack a real clear editorial process for that. Also, people have in the past like had ideas for things to add to backdrop.org. And to be honest, the process, like as somebody who I think is listed as one of the contacts for if you want to do this, talk to Tim. Tim is a little bit unsure how to do that. Like how we make decisions has been a bit fuzzy. And we talked about that as a PMC recently. And what we'd like to do is open up is basically take the list of people who currently have permissions to make these kinds of changes to backdrop.org and call them a team, make them a team, and basically give them a Zulip channel where they can talk to each other. And so that if you have a question about what or how to do, you can talk to the other editors on backdrop.org and function a little bit more as a team. Irina has volunteered to do a little bit of coordinating of that. And the idea would be that that they might talk, for things like what is the process? People will write a blog post and say, well, how do I get it approved? And there isn't really a formal process. And this group would be the one sort of responsible to decide, like how we want to handle that. Do we want to just let people, who have the permission do it themselves? Do we want to just, say any two people, anyways, the point is that they can kind of come up with a policy and better manage that. And the most important thing is now we kind of have a place that we can point people and say, here are the people in charge and here's how to contact them. So if you're interested in being involved in that, let us know. Izzy, but I think you'll be on that team because we just gave you editor permission. People will have the option to bow out if they don't want to be on that team, but by default, anybody with the editor permission on backdrop.org will be assumed at the beginning to be part of the team. Izzy, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I found it quite reassuring when I first put that post on, knowing that I wasn't going to suddenly plunge in and publish something without the opportunity to have other people have a look at it. And in particular, with this legend of Drop the Dragon, I didn't want to be implying anything about people real or imagined that are part of the backdrop community, but I did want to have a little bit of fun with the idea of how, what backdrop spirit about and how this dragon legend has sort of emerged. I hope in the forum we can have a bit more tongue-in-cheek or fun around this subject. But I did find it reassuring, kind of knowing that you could kind of start to contribute a blog and have other people give you feedback before it was published. I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, I think having that extra step is nice, but having that extra step better defined is even better. And I think we're getting closer to that. Also, Irina has been is sort of we've identified Irina. We've had some questions about like publishing press releases and a sort of official blog posts from the Backdrop community. And Irina is now the point person from the PMC to sort of, if you have questions about or want to help with a PR or press release or a blog post that's more community orientated. Well, any questions about the blog post, Irina is a point of contact. I'll just leave it at that. And that's, I think, I'm going to do one other thing. So in this whole discussion, I was reminded of something which I completely forgot about, and I think it's worth reminding people of this. And this is a good point to do it. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. This question of who to contact about things. I did not know this existed. I think I knew at one point, but had totally forgotten. And I've told people that this doesn't exist when in fact it does. There is, if you go to the leadership page on backdrop.org, under roles, responsibilities, and points of contact, there is some information here about like who best to contact about different things, including things like social media accounts, Google page. I assume YouTube is in there. So for example, if you had some ideas about the YouTube channel, you can find out who to talk to about those things. And I had completely forgotten that this page existed. We may want to do some more work on this for like a website, the topic we were just talking about. You can actually see a list of everybody who has editor access on backdrop.org here. And so if people weren't aware of that, it's a sublink off of the leadership page.
I was not aware of this, actually. Yeah.
I could have swore that somebody suggested we do that and we decided not to. So I have like specifically told people, no, we don't keep a list like that. And it turns out we do actually have one. And if you have ideas on how to improve this or make better use of it, let us know, but at least be aware that it's there.
Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, it could use some improvements to its appearance, but I actually appreciate that it exists. Because all of the people's profiles are public, so it's not revealing anything new as far as like personal information, because the clarity of really even who has access to what is kind of it's not clear at all. But it is through these lists, so that's great. But it is kind of buried.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome,
Hey.
Luke.
Hey, how y'all doing? How do you find that list? I didn't know that existed either.
Go to the leadership page, and on the leadership page, it's in the right-hand corner, the right-hand column, roles, responsibilities, and points of contact.
Yeah, I might want to might edit the leadership page itself, actually. Like honestly, the conflict resolution thing at the bottom needs to be updated a little bit anyway, because it's been a decade. But we could add another section in here where it's like, the leadership, but then we could also just call out in the body text of the leadership page the other sections that are in the sub navigation, just to make it so that there's multiple ways to get there. Because at least I jumped over that, like roles, responsibility, and points of contact kind of sounded to me like it was going to summarize access control levels. It wasn't going to give me lists of people, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I think we definitely could do a better job of that. We could also do a better job of communicating to the community what opportunities there are to participate in these things. And for a long time, it's been on my agenda to write like a blog post where I say, here are some of the areas where we really could use help beyond just, core contribution, right? Sort of community tasks. There are certain tasks that like we've been left unfilled for a long time, that if we had somebody to do them, it would be helpful. And I think people in the community, there might be people out there that would be willing to, they just don't realize that we want that.
It might
Yeah.
be helpful just to consider renaming that to who to contact rather than roles, responsibilities, and
I like that. We'll forward that suggestion to our new web team.
I think
Yeah,
I
there-
could see
that-
where to contact them too.
You look at the revision history, it looks like that page was entirely done by Jen. She updated it 5 times in 2020, and
Mhm.
it was created in October 2019 by Drop, which is probably Jen too, right?
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, that's an area for improvement, but I'm glad it exists.
The other thing before we move too far along, when you were talking about the activity in Contrib, it reminded me of a link which I put in the chat, and maybe it can be put in with the YouTube, which is my go-to link to see what's going on new in Contrib. And it brings up those things like Bean and several other things that are going on.
Yeah, so this is the link. And how did you get here?
I found it at some point. And, it's from the anyway, I've got it on my own personal hot links for Backdrop. I forget how I got there.
So it looks like we click over to repositories and then all, and then sort by, oh yeah, it sorts by last pushed already. So yeah, just the repositories link from the Backdrop contrib group. Yeah, it shows you the changes to the most recently updated repositories like Bedrock. The Bedrock theme has been updated within the last 12 hours. Great. Okay. Well, this party keeps getting a little bit bigger here. Irina, welcome to the dev meeting.
Hello.
All right. Other topics for today. We had a couple of technical questions. Let's see. I'll just pull up this one issue before we move into Martin's question about node access, which I don't think has an issue. So I'm not quite sure who put this in the agenda, the cache bin for book navigation. Does anybody who put that
Yeah.
into the agenda want to say a word or two about it?
Yeah, I put that in there, and I should just mark it as tested, but I have used that locally and on production on a site, and it's just supposed to be faster, right?
Mhm.
It just makes book faster, so it didn't break anything. And I don't know if my books are big enough to see the speed that it provides, but it seemed to me that this would be something worth pushing along to maybe get into the next release.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Oh, okay, interesting. So there used to be a module called book cache. And so this does the work of like if book cache was previously in contrib, then it disables the module. Does it add it to merge modules? It sure does. Backdrop merge modules. Great. So this is a example of like what happens when a module gets completely absorbed into core. It will disable and then prevent that module from being enabled again because the core has absorbed its functionality. Okay, great. This is marked as like, this does make me a little bit nervous that it's absorbing a contrib module in a bug fix release. We might want to bump that into 131 potentially. Because I mean, it's a performance improvement, but if it wasn't absorbing a contrib module, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable about it. But it actually like disabling a module as part of a bug fix release seems a bit aggressive. So we might move that into 131. But yeah, if it's ready, then I would encourage you to say so. That, I mean, at the very least, market works for me.
Yes. Yeah, I'll do that. And I agree best to put it for the next feature release, 131.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay. And Jen has joined us now as well. This party keeps getting bigger, Jen.
Yay.
And Martin, you had a question about node access control.
Yeah, so within the node class, the function access, it invokes the hook of node access. So if you do hook node access in your module, it will be implemented here. But however, before that happens, we kick someone out if they don't have the access content. And I can see the reason why that might be, but it doesn't give modules then the opportunity to say, actually, in this exceptional case, I want to do something slightly different. So even if someone doesn't have this, I want to grant them access to this if this condition is met.
Yeah, like maybe a site where 99% of all content is not accessible. It's a totally private intranet or something like that. But then there's one content type or one piece of content, maybe like a homepage, right? Explaining what the website does, that might be shown to all users with no permissions or a different permission, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the historical reasons for this. I can guess quite a bit, and Martin, you probably have ideas too. It might be for like efficiency, just to shortcut, doing a more complicated access check, because it's kind of like a baseline permission. Yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts about the way you'd probably envision this changing?
I, I don't know, to be honest, but whether it was it's difficult to work out exactly how, because it says because it specifically denies access, and the logic basically says if one module denies access. So I don't know what the best way to do it is, but it does seem that it's a bit inflexible. I mean, I can see. I think the bypass node access giving true access is probably fine, but it just seems we cut it off.
Yeah, the the option I see available, that we could try and see if it has repercussions is, move this particular check into a hook node access that, let's see, it would actually, I think, be, trying to think how this would work. I'm not sure if you could make it early or you could make it late. Like it would have different effects potentially if there was other hook node access systems in place. But yeah, it
it's
makes me a
difficult
little
to know
nervous. I
because
could see it affecting the resulting value potentially.
yeah, I'm not sure what the solution is.
I'm not
how to
sure.
do it without having much wider ramifications, but it's yeah, maybe we need I don't know, maybe we need a hook that could bypass, that could enable you to bypass that check. I don't know.
I'm not sure if I really understand what problem you're trying to solve here. When you were looking at those two things at the very beginning, the bypass node access and the access content, this is just basically implementing what is on the permissions page, so that you can
Yeah,
grant user
Uh,
access to a node type or not, or
yeah,
you can have an administrator bypass that. So I'm not sure, and then this all seems to work fine with all the other access control modules. Is there a problem
I
that's
think
happened?
it is just the fact that if you want to do something, if for example you have a site that is generally locked down, but you want to make the occasional node visible to people, either with a special condition, or just simply to make just one node visible to the public. Because of this, you can't just quickly do a hook node access. You because you've denied that. So what you'd have to do is, instead, is you would have to say, okay, everyone can access all content, and then lock down the content except for this one page. So it's just, I guess it's just, can we make it so that you can do it that way? But I mean, if at the moment I don't know what the best solution is, and it may be that there isn't a nice, clean solution. It may be that the way to solve this is with doing it the other way, where you lock it down, where you open it up and then lock it down in your modules, and except for this one node.
Yeah, I mean, you already arrived at the same conclusion. I think that, yeah, you could, give everybody this permission and then implement hook node access. You could also even create another permission where it's like access internal content or something like that. And so it would be confusing. I would imagine you'd have to explain it, because access content would be granted to everybody, including anonymous, but access internal content would not be granted to anonymous. And then that's what would actually get checked inside of hook node access.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know, Martin, about how changeable this is without affecting,
Yeah.
it's it's a dangerous area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that, and I just thought it'd be worth exploring whether there was anything, but the more we discuss it, the more it seems that it's going to be problematic to try and change it.
If I were trying to do it, my first inclination would be to use something like TAC Lite as a module, and have a tag that is public, and then just put that tag on whatever node it is that you want to make available.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great suggestion. If you wanted to do it with no code, I mean, yeah, just switch to an access control module. Which, yeah, would probably, I'd probably say that would be the quote right way to do it. I like that suggestion where it's like, yeah, make a vocabulary like public or private, and then or at least those are the terms, and then give by default everything would be private. But I don't know. It is also like, yeah, it's a big thing for just making one page public. Yeah, I totally get you there. All right, well let's see. We've got 10 minutes left. There's a couple other topics that have been coming up, and I think the next thing that we've got here, based on the chat, is that Irina would like to discuss layout paragraphs, which was also mentioned earlier in the meeting. So yeah, this would be great. I'd like to hear updates about layout paragraphs updates. So this is in Zulip. There's no issue yet on it. But Irina, if you want to give us an update or questions or thoughts on what you're planning here, that would be great.
I talked to Tim Stocker at UC Denver and to Laren, and I think that there is a common interest in doing stuff to make layered paragraphs working in Backdrop. And Laren spent a lot of time planning it and thinking about it, and he outlined 3 steps. And I'm not a developer of that level to actually code the steps, but it would be great to have something on the front of layout paragraphs. Because first step is to do something with it in the core, and if it's in the core, then it might require some additional effort. So if people have interest in making it happening and have time and expertise to look into this, now is great time, because there are projects that can directly use it.
Yeah, so let's look at the 3 steps here, just for discussion purposes, because it looks like there's some
And also
callouts here.
move this discussion into topic that is as title layout paragraphs, because I believe that like naming conventions are important.
Yeah, so this is, yeah, under layout paragraphs now. It's one of the most active or recently updated topics in the Backdrop Zulip. And so Laren has laid out a plan here. There's a core pull request, which looks like we're missing the link here, which allows the possibility of different layout types without recreating the entire layout system in Contrib. So there's a core pull request. This would be useful. Even without seeing the issue, I'll comment on this, that the layout system, the layout templates in Backdrop right now are really only intended for controlling the entire page, which includes like the header and it has a top and a bottom, and it contains regions that are things like page top and page bottom and things of that nature. And that makes the out-of-box core templates not really useful for being a part of the page. It's really intended to be the entire page. And so I've thought about this several times about how it would be useful if we had layouts that were more focused. I think that there's a module called mini layouts that is similar, that it makes layouts inside, like makes it so a single block can have a layout, for example, and then you can put other blocks inside of that block, and then you get layouts inside of layouts. And this is something that layout paragraphs would also need to have available. And so, yeah, I'm seeing there's lots of Contrib potential here for, I need to put a layout in the middle of a page and not have it be the entire page, but I still want to use layouts templating system and potentially the UI. So yeah, I'd like to take a look at this pull request and see what it's doing. So let's see, step 2, a new module written a lot of code for, but needs cleaning up and extracting from local layout paragraphs testing module. This will provide a UI, create functions for to use the customized layout types. These won't be mixed in with core layout listings, etc., but managed separately. This module will be useful for layout paragraphs, but for other uses, also for other uses, I think. So I'll take a look at that. And a new paragraph submodule largely yet to be built, which will use the module from above to create and use layout paragraph configurations. So yeah, more deeply integrate with backdrop systems rather than blindly porting layout paragraphs from Drupal. I need the time to devote to it. Yeah, so it's an ambitious plan. Need some help from core. I think it's interesting that this plan structures it as a submodule of paragraphs rather than a separate project. And I'm guessing that's because in Drupal land, paragraphs is maintained by one person and layout paragraphs is maintained by another. And in backdrop land, this is probably the same person in both projects. But I'm excited about this because, in my opinion, layout paragraphs is fantastic. Like when I'm building Drupal websites, I really have a strong preference for using layout paragraphs over any other paragraphs widget, because I think just even if you're not using a layout, like you're not using left and right columns or something like that to place your paragraphs, just even linearly placing your paragraphs one after the other in a single column, layout paragraphs has a better user interface than any of the other widgets that are available for paragraphs module. So yeah, even in just a one right after the other interface, it's superior. And I kind of wonder if that use case of like, well, do we even need a layout at all, could potentially be built out like before we have the core pull request. I mean, if we didn't actually need the layout portions of things, it was just one, paragraph stacked on top of each other like a traditional paragraphs field. If that would be possible to implement that portion. I don't know. I'm just spinning a yarn here. I don't. I'm sure the suggestion here that we have different types of layouts as a capable thing, I think is a great idea and something that I've seen potential use cases for a long time. So I really like that concept. And yeah, it'll take a little bit of work to implement because there aren't layout types right now. So we'd have to assume that if no layout type is specified, then it's a page level layout. And if there is a layout type specified, then yeah, we would just populate a default. And when you look at the list of layout
Yeah.
templates, it only shows page level ones.
I think we
It
have
might also. Sorry.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead,
Martin.
Irina, first.
I'm sorry. I'm coming as usual from the user's perspective, and we have very clearly defined user flow that is very efficient. If it will be helpful to document it somewhere, tell me where to document it, so developers will know what users are trying to achieve. And also, Drupal has different approach to layouts than Backdrop. And so it's like not one-to-one, but end users don't care what's underneath. End users care that they can build the page without changing the layout itself, so that the paragraph layout belongs to the node rather than propagating everything. That's kind of one of the key elements.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Martin, did you have something to add as well?
Yeah, I could see this potentially this core edition possibly being of use to the mini layouts module, because at the moment, if you need to edit the blocks in a mini layout, you have to go to a completely separate thing. Whereas if you could integrate the interface so that you could drop in a mini layout, but then be able to manage it in a much more intuitive way, I think that would also be a great improvement.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. To go back to what Irina is saying, yeah, we need to think about both things here about like the end user, as you're saying, you're right, doesn't care. But to Martin's point, the lack of a central core support results in kind of some awkwardness and re-implementation of stuff in multiple places. And having that ability could potentially help both projects make things more more streamlined. A layout paragraphs makes its own UI for creating the layouts, so it probably wouldn't see a lot of reuse there. But I could see mini layouts as being able to leverage like more reuse, because the core UI right now is also kind of structured around the layouts as we have them now. And if we had that supporting core, we could make a UI that is a little bit more flexible about like the kinds of layouts that you're editing. And make for more reuse there, and hopefully less awkward. I don't really know much about mini layouts, but other than I get the concept of it. So yeah, looking at both projects would probably be a good start. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so we're gonna wrap up for today. Does anyone have any last comments or thoughts before we close?
Another thing we discussed using that layout UI for was the field displays and the entity displays and entity forms, so that we could have like a fully integrated alternative to Display Suite.
Yeah, and make it so that you could modify your display mode on a content type level. Yeah, and that's another great example of like if there were layouts inside the page and not just around the whole page, you could use it for those kinds of purposes. Yeah, that's another great example. Yeah, and I guess there's actually per node layouts too. I think there's a module for that, like node layouts or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
something like that, yeah.
So the more we talk, the more places where like in this module, yeah.
So there's node layouts and there's layout nodes, and they both work slightly differently.
Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's
Just
go ahead.
really quick, the next meeting, announcement about the next meeting. So immediately after this meeting, we're having a meeting on documentation. In the past, this would have been a design UX meeting, but we've broken up every other design UX meeting will now be repurposed, at least for the time being, for documentation. And Martin, I think, is agreed to help facilitate those meetings. So yeah, so come join Martin and anybody and the rest of us to talk about documentation. That's it.
All right, great. Well, we'll wrap up for today and let the documentation meeting kick off. So thank you everybody for joining the meeting, and thanks to our viewers out there. We'll see everybody next week.